حي على الفلاح.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Money Council platform with our esteemed guest, looking at the masterclass that was conducted by the firm called iConsult Africa, a Sharia advisory firm operating in the South African market. And with me is esteemed guest, Dr. Ziad Muhammad from Malaysia, originally from SA. But he's an associate professor at one of the Islamic universities in Malaysia and also the chairman of iConsult Africa. Assalamu alaikum and welcome, Dr. Ziad.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So, in this episode, we'd like to look at the very exciting sort of space and field, fintech. Very broad, but in the masterclass that you covered on this topic or subject, is looking particularly at Islamic digital banking, and then looking at it from a global context. I think what's important is to understand, and perhaps a kickstart to the conversation, is the evolution of money and what we all understand or we see as an acceptance of money in today's time, because we've seen a lot happening through time.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. That is a huge topic. The understanding of the evolution of money from the Sharia perspective, at least, is that the Islamic economic system has really looked at gold and silver as the initial mediums of exchange. And the dinar and dirham had played a major role in the evolution of even Islamic economics itself. But the Sharia does not limit the medium of exchange to gold and silver.
Yes.
In fact, in the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, there is reference to 6 different commodities, and the jurists are clear that it is not limited to those 6 per se, but it is rather what they represent in terms of a store of value. So from the Islamic perspective, those mediums of exchange, whether they are gold and silver and how they've evolved into fils and fulus or little copper coins, and then later into paper, and then more recently into fiat, then all of that represents a medium of exchange based on social concurrence, or Istilaagh. And the fact that the market recognizes that it has value and it can be exchanged and used for the purchase of other commodities is the fact that it can be used as money.
Right. If we're looking at that now, and from a fintech point of view, which is short for financial technology, we still understand that a lot of people, a lot of consumers, they want to visit a physical building, speak to a banker, do their transactions, set up a bank account, etc., etc. A lot has changed globally, and we're starting to see this in SA as well. So perhaps, to understand what digital banking is all about, what does that mean?
So initially, banking evolved into telephone banking, SMS banking, internet banking. And that was the precursor to digital banking. Now, digital banking is looking at establishing platforms free of any brick and mortar. That means that all transactions are taking place through an app, through a smartphone, through perhaps even an internet or digital platform that grants you access to financing, to allow you to place deposits, to provide payment gateways to you so that you can transact. So digital banking is really just working through the cloud to allow all financial services to seamlessly take place and grant access to everyone.
Right. I mean, if we look at South Africa, we look at Africa as a whole, and many other countries around the world, one of the big underserviced markets, if you want to call it, is those that are not banking clients. Those that live in the villages, all around the world, but they are involved in commerce in some fashion or sort. So it's really about this financial accessibility. What's your view in terms of fintech and perhaps Islamic fintech?
So, yeah, you're quite right. From the African perspective, you have a significant population that is unbanked or underbanked or underserved. One startling experience was the Kenyan experience, for example, the M-Pesa. And M-Pesa was based on a simple mobile phone, not a smartphone that we have today, but really those old ones. And, what comes to mind is those Nokia 3310s.
Yes.
And the M-Pesa was really accessible through that type of phone. And it gave a shepherd up in the northern part of Kenya the opportunity to transact, to buy and sell, and to have a little bank account through his phone. So he was trading through airtime vouchers.
Yes.
Now that has evolved, and now you've got M-Shwari in Kenya and so many other solutions out throughout Africa. And what it does is ultimately it creates financial inclusion. It allows a connection of people that may not be perfectly financially literate, may not have any credit history, may not understand how banking or Islamic banking operates, but they are able to transact based on services that they most are in need of.
Yes.
And that is the advantage of Islamic fintech.
Yes.
It gives access.
Yes.
And that's a huge development and potential benefit, inshallah, for the African population.
During the masterclass, you've looked at the Malaysian market in particular being one of the biggest Islamic finance, or arguably the biggest in the world. And then also the trend that's uprising in the minority community in the UK, in the Islamic finance space. What are some of the trends that we're seeing in the Islamic fintech?
The United Kingdom is an interesting case because it bears significant similarities with South Africa. South Africa is a minority not much smaller than the UK Muslim minority, and regulation is similar. So if you've seen Islamic fintech really progress and develop within the UK, then at least you know that there's potential in South Africa to create a similar kind of sector. The key trends in the UK have focused around neobanks. And those neobanks are basically challenger banks to traditional or incumbent banks. And they are purely digital.
Yes.
You also have several financing platforms based on P2P or peer-to-peer. You have organizations or fintech solutions that are plug-in. So they offer a regulatory tech solution. They offer a charitable solution like a zakat technology or sadaqah technology. So you'd see that the UK has really developed very well to be formidable. And they're in the top 5 now in terms of Islamic fintech development internationally.
Why would you say that we've seen this massive trend or uprise in the UK and just this take up to fintech?
Well, the UK has several benefits, one of which is the close link to Europe and a strong technology-driven market.
Right.
So the UK is really delivering on meeting demand.
Yes.
So it's meeting demand from the conventional side. London is well known as an international financial center. And as it's evolving, customer needs and demands are evolving, and therefore financial technology is par for the course, so to speak. So Islamic fintech is really just moving along the conventional fintech development by offering unique solutions with Sharia-compliant expertise, Sharia-compliant acceptance throughout that region, and something that can be replicated outside the UK.
One of the remarkable statistics that you had during your talk was the age demographic.
Yes.
Where you find between, I think it was 16 and 34 years of age, where there's a bigger uptake versus the older generation that prefer to have face-to-face, visit a branch, speak to a banker, etc. I would think, for one, that in South Africa, that would certainly be the same scenario that the younger population would take up in terms of Islamic fintech, banking, etc., etc. Now, perhaps looking at the UK market, and what I found quite interesting is the crowdfunding, peer-to-peer lending as well. Because in South Africa, there's this massive desire or I think need for entrepreneurship, and perhaps through traditional financing methods of raising capital to fund, a smart business idea. Perhaps this is an opportunity through crowdfunding. I mean, what's your view in terms of the Malaysian market and then also UK?
Malaysia has been successful in establishing a basic crowdfunding platform that's Sharia compliant. And a lot of this comes from support from the regulator.
Yes.
So you have the Securities Commission in Malaysia that has a regulatory sandbox that allows you to pilot your ideas, innovative ideas, and then even provides you with a license.
Right.
So because of the oversight and supervision around these types of fintechs, they provide a lot more confidence to the user, to the consumer. And really what you mentioned earlier around the 16 to 34 demographic is about trust. They trust technology a little bit more than those, in the Gen X and Gen Y. And that's because they have grown up with it.
Yes.
So through that, they see crowdfunding as an easy approach to actually invest into and invest through. And it's not a difficult concept. It's relatively easy to be able to invest because they can understand the risks they are exposed to.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Understanding, I mean, so when we talk about crowdfunding, perhaps
just a brief,
give some context to how that would work, across industries.
So crowdfunding has several categories, 4 particular categories. But of those 4 categories, if one were to understand how a platform like Kickstarter works, along Kickstarter, you present a prototype of your product and you provide a discounted rate to first customers, the first 100. You also provide opportunity for equity investing through the crowdfunding. So you now give access to the public to be able to invest and participate in your business because financial institutions are not ready, the risk is too high, but the public may be willing to be exposed to that type of risk, understanding that the risk-reward relationship is pretty high. So from the crowdfunding perspective, a typical scenario, besides the prototypes and the manufacturing of products is concerned, is the investment platform.
Yes.
So ultimately, an investment project is identified by the crowdfunding platform. They calculate the risks and the exposure to risk for the investor. They then offer the opportunity to the investor through the platform to say, well, we just the matching party.
Connecting.
And we'll match your funds with the one who needs those funds. We will administrate, we will monitor the project, we will distribute the dividends over time, but bear in mind that although this comes with a high return, it also comes with a high risk.
Yes.
So from that perspective, there's an easy process of Sharia compliance because you can look at a typical mudaraba, which is a silent partnership structure that can fit neatly in that crowdfunding structure. So these are typical examples of how crowdfunding could work.
Dr. Jihad, what also comes to mind is that Sharia supervisory board is usually made up of Islamic scholars.
Yes.
And then you have the business fintech fraternity with so many skill sets that one needs to understand. Bringing the two together, that they work coherently, that actually see a sector growing. What's your view on that?
Sharia scholars are quickly understanding that they need a multidisciplinary skill set.
Yes.
And that skill set is no longer limited to understanding the classical jurisprudence. It means that a scholar must understand technology and how it operates, and be able to make pronouncements only after he truly understands how that technology will impact the stakeholders.
Yes.
And this stems from a very important legal maxim in the Sharia. So, al-hukmu ala shay, when they are looking at a ruling on some item, then it's far'un an tasawwurih. This means that it is really a product, an outcome of understanding the context. In other words, you can't provide an opinion until you understand the context very well. That means that scholars must become tech savvy if they want to pronounce on technological advancement or fintech in this case.
Certainly. Shukran for that, Dr. Ziad, for the insight around Islamic fintech. Do like the episode. If you found this information valuable, comment, subscribe to the Money Council, and if there's any information and research that you want to find out, you can visit iConsult Africa's website to speak to one of the Sharia advisors. Thank you again, and do join us on the next episode on the Money Council. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
حي على الفلاح.